It is almost a year since a factory collapsed in Bangladesh, crushing more than 1,100 workers. The disaster prompted many calls to improve the desperate conditions in similar sites, many of which supply clothes for high street shops in the UK.
The results of the first 10 inspection reports on the factories have been published today, and despite the pledges to improve safety conditions, they suggest little has changed.
Well, earlier we spoke to Dr. Sharon Sadeh, Managing Director of Green Grade, who works with factory owners in Bangladesh and retailers in the UK to improve standards.
Most retailers employ audit companies and inspectors to check periodically what's happening in those factories. However, many factories are very sophisticated in trying to mask their reality and provide forged documentation to coach their workers into lying to those inspectors. So the way now is to try and improve the conditions by educating and informing the factories to comply with the law and the requirements. So I think we have a major task on our hands, and retailers coming together have the influence and the ability to make a change, because in those emerging countries it's very hard to expect the authorities who didn't enforce the law up to that point to elicit that change. So it's down to the private sector and the buyers to bring the change.
Well, let's discuss this now with the ethical journalist Tansy Hoskins and fashion designer Katharine Hamnett, who joins us from our London studio. Katharine Hamnett, if I could start with you. As a designer producing more expensive clothes, do you have more power in the way that your clothes are made and the factories they're made in?
Well, because I'm the boss, I can decide what factory they're made in, and I'm very careful to inspect factories that I'm working with to make sure that they comply with ethical conditions. I suppose I was the whistleblower on this in the first place, or one of the first whistleblowers, so I'm very, very careful about where I get my clothes made.
And when you've been out on the road sourcing places to make these clothes, what have you seen?
Well, I've been to, I've double-checked on factories, manufacturing and export processing zones who are supposed to be super cool, super squeaky, interviewed girls in the dormitories in the area and found out that there were loads of underage workers in the factories, enforced unpaid overtime, so I didn't give the contract to that factory.
As a designer, are you frustrated that there is still such a huge demand for cheap, quickly produced clothing?
Well, there's always going to be a demand for cheap, because people, we've got cutbacks, we've got austerity, we've got, children wanting to buy clothes, we've got unemployed people needing clothes to get jobs. It's sort of biological programming. You want to make yourself look attractive, you haven't got any money. What I'm appalled with is the indifference of the brands and the retailers to the issues that we've been talking about, because although the conditions in the factories are appalling and unsafe, and the minimum wage in Bangladesh is a sixth of a living wage still, they're not prepared to address these issues. And my view is that you can give up on them, because I've been in so many meetings where they've just been trying to avoid exposure by the NGOs. The only thing that's going to make a difference if we have laws that only allow goods that have got building fire safety accord and living wage specifications, verifiable certifications that allow goods into our economic blocks.
Well, that's very
Nothing
interesting.
else is going to happen.
Yes, Tansy Hoskins, you're a journalist, you write on issues of ethics to do with fashion. The suggestion is that a lot of the companies, if you like, they're paying lip service to the idea, sign up for a treaty, but in practice, things don't change much.
Well, I think if we had a drastic change in the mentality of the retail industry, the people who died at Rana Plaza and their families wouldn't still be waiting for compensation. There's some very big brands out there who admitted to using Rana Plaza and haven't paid a penny in compensation. So for a lot of the brands, yes, it is business as usual.
Do you think any progress has been made? Because you would have hoped, indeed, there's legislation in place. Is that, again, another sort of box-ticking exercise? And does that sound good, so that they can say they've signed up for it? but at the sharp end, things haven't changed.
No, I mean the Bangladesh Accord is a game changer. I mean it's the first time that it's been we've had a legally binding agreement. It's the first time it's something that's worker led, it's trade union led. So the right people are now inspecting the factories, and it's the first time brands have had to disclose which factories they're using. So it is a game changer. It gives workers in Bangladesh and international trade unions a lot more rights.
As a consumer, though, what should we be looking for?
Well, honestly, I think as a consumer, the first thing is not just to consider yourself as a consumer. I mean, I think that's quite a powerless position. I think what we can be doing is working with trade unions, working with the National Garment Workers Federation in Bangladesh, and pushing retailers to sign up to the Bangladesh Accord and making sure that they keep their promises.
Katharine, is there a danger, do you think? I mean, the fight is always on to get costs down. Is there a danger that, you know, Bangladesh, having come down on this hard, inevitably the trade will just go somewhere else where someone can do it cheaper, and then the problem moves on?
Yeah, there's an absolute danger that this will happen, and unless we have basically the same arrangements, that we have a building fire and safety accord and we have an acceptable living wage paid to all outsourced countries sending goods into the EU, they're just going to move the work from Bangladesh, and there's 3 million women who will be out of work. So we have to be very, very careful how we deal with this situation.
Tansy Hoskins, Katharine Hamnett, thank you both very much for your time this morning. Thank you.